Byron,
Yo,
good to see you, my man.
you did, dude.
I've been really excited to sit down and do this iteration of the concert series with you because I think that you are a unique mind and a very forward-thinking person. So I have a lot of questions for you today, and a lot of them are going to be really focused around like the future of the industry, the future of doing business, community and collaboration, and technology. And so let's dive right in. My first question, Mr. B, is what is the presence or the role of social media in your business? Because you have a great following online. I think you do a really good job of being the face in front of the camera, which is something that people want to see nowadays. Yeah. So just talk to me a little bit about, why you see value investing in social media.
Sure. I am going to address as easily distracted guy. So we're in a brewery.
That's right.
And there's brewing happening in the back right now. So I can see your film crew cringing at the noises that are happening, but we're going to work through it. So social media I see as it's a great tool to connect with people. We all know that. Where I like it is when we can create moments to establish a bit of credibility, establish just some trust. You kind of get through the first couple meetings just by knowing what your voice sounds like online or what I look like when I'm eating a sandwich. Like you can get through some of those things. So when you actually meet people in real life, there's a more meaningful connection that gets made. And that's how I think about how I engage with social media.
That's awesome. And I think, you mentioned it. We're sitting here in a brewery and you are one of the founders of Builders and Brews. Yeah. And I remember when I went to the first one a couple of years ago, there was like maybe 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
And the last one I went to, there was like 200 and something people. And so when you talk, and I don't know how much of that was tied to your strategy with social media, you just being a really great guy and very authentic, but just talk to me about like why you started Builders and Brews, how you guys grew the following, and how important that, event has become for you guys.
Absolutely. I'll say it's probably a lot less strategic than it looks.
Yeah.
Like it was just founded in that ethos from an experience that I had at Annex Ale Project of like seeing firsthand. We were building a tap room much like this one. We're in cabin brewing right now, but we're building a tap room like this one, and I got to see firsthand how when different brewers came in, they came in with a spirit of collaboration and sharing. So I would see brewers come in with like a pallet of bags. What are you guys doing here? Oh, we're dropping off hops because they need this specific type of hops and we have extra. A couple days later, different brewers would come in and I'd say, what are you guys doing here? And they would say, oh, we're here to help set up this equipment because we really screwed it up when we set up our brewery and we don't want Andrew and Erica to make the same mistake. And then again, later, brewers would come in with kegs. What are you guys doing? And they were dropping off beer so that their competitor could sell their product when they opened the doors. And I thought, man, this just doesn't happen like in our industry. People don't show up at your shop and be like, hey, I got some extra roller shades. Why don't you take them? Like it doesn't happen. But there was something really refreshing about seeing how that played out and how we can all see that happening with the proliferation of tap rooms and craft beer offerings in this community that they've managed to create because they recognize that by working together and educating consumers, they can build each other up and capture more market share from the InBevs and the Molsons and the Heinekens, the really big beverage companies. That's their competitor. Each other is not their competitor. So in our space, in the craft, design, construction, and supplier space, I think we don't look at it that way often enough. We're trying to compete with the greenfield builders. We're not trying to compete with Night Custom Homes, or you're not necessarily trying to compete with somebody else. We're all trying to better educate consumers about the value that we bring. So through that story and through making some connections through social media, we just started hosting those events. And Stefan and I joke that it's a community that just won't let itself die. Like we've tried a few times through like benign neglect where it's like, we just won't schedule anything. And then people will be asking us like, what's happening? Why? When's the next one? When's the next one? So it's a real testament to both Stefan's organization abilities and keeping that going, but also the community itself. There's an appetite for people to connect and collaborate.
And I think that's also something that I've seen a lot over the last maybe 18 months is that appetite for community and for collaboration and for knowledge sharing. And I don't know where it's coming from, but I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
do you think that it's just like a changing of the guard and that there's, new people entering the industry or people changing? Like, what do you think's driving this? Is it COVID? Like, why do we want to connect? Why are we all so hungry for these networking and collaborative knowledge sharing opportunities?
I think it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But I love that you were seeing that. I think it's okay. I think it's a few things, but I think it's like a really delayed reaction to living in the information age, where like any information I want to know where this leather came from, who supplies it. I could start doing some Googling. I can figure out everything I need to know about that product. What I can't do through the internet is go meet the leather worker who's going to make that, who's going to put that together, have a one-on-one conversation with him. So I think there's sort of a realization in there that while tools like AI and data sharing and that data analysis are very valuable and very important, they're never going to replace the human connection that we all need and we strive for. And as jobs change with AI coming in, AI is not going to be able to be empathetic. AI is not going to be able to make a meaningful one-on-one connection. So I think that's one part of it. And then I think COVID accelerated that because we were all kind of locked in and we thought, holy shit, I have the internet, but that's not enough. I crave connection with real people and real relationships. So I think that kind of turned it up a little bit. And then I think another interesting part of it is more societally over time. There used to be, have you ever heard of a concept called third spaces?
No.
Like, have you heard of that? So a third space, so you have your home, you have your work, and then you have a third space. Typically in 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, that would have been your village, your little community, your tribe. In the past number of centuries, that would have been your faith-based community or clubs you were a part of or the pub you were a regular at. Like, people crave that third space where they don't have the obligations of home, they don't have the obligations of work, they just have a space to connect with people where there's not as much of an agenda. So I think Builders and Brews fills a bit of that third space, and I think that's that appetite for community and connection. There's a documentary on Netflix called Join or Die, which is really, really interesting. I recommend anybody watch it, but you watch it. It's a correlation between civic engagement, so like satisfaction with politics and the place you live, like an inverse correlation between membership in clubs went down, like faith in government and willingness to help your neighbor and all these things. So they tracked bowling leagues and civic engagement, and they went down exactly together. And it was a really interesting thing that I think is starting to turn around now, which is really exciting.
And do you think that, you mentioned that AI isn't going to be empathetic and data science is super important. Do you think that there's ways that we can leverage those tools outside of just becoming more productive, more efficient, more profitable, and moving quicker in business? Do you think there's ways that we can use those tools to help push that, civic engagement and community building and ideation faster?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so that by using those tools to strip out some of the drudgery of the work that we normally do, we can create more opportunities to go and really connect with people or really lean into the work that we love to do. So as a tool for doing that, I think it will be effective. But I don't think it's going to be a cure-all. Like, I think, like you said, people still need to connect and get out there. But it's interesting to see where that's going.
And I know, I talk to a lot of business owners. I talk to a lot of different people, and I sometimes sound like the guy with the tin hat when I start talking about AI.
Yeah.
I light up and I'm doing this with this tool and that tool, and I'm using this. And I feel like a lot of people are just like, whoa, dude, like chill with the AI. Yeah. Even my wife is just like every day, every night she's like, okay, here we go again. But we had breakfast recently, and the breakfast before that, like half the time we were sharing how we're using tools. And I love it because you get it. Yeah. You're using them, you're implementing, you're testing, you're iterating. Talk to me about how AI has been kind of shaping your workflows on a daily basis, where you see massive opportunities for implementation in the future, and how you think it will kind of shape our industry going forward.
Yeah, sure. So there's a whole bunch of different angles I can go through. So the main way we're using AI right now is like to augment some of the communication gaps that often exist within construction projects. Like our role as project managers is to manage all the bits of information that are required to put together a project, right? And that can be quite cumbersome when you're dealing with like 6 text messages over here and 11 WhatsApp messages and 12 emails and 3 phone calls and 2 conversations on site. So we're really using technology and AI to bring all those conversations together. So like, I know we talked about last time, I've been using a thing called a Plaud device, like PLAUD, and it's an AI voice recorder, but I use that to record meeting minutes. Now that meeting I had on site where a client's like, okay, I want this over here, and then I need this over here and that over there, which is a departure from the drawings, but it's still important because we're there working for the clients. We need to capture that. So now we can capture that using AI and bring all that back into one GPT basically to say like, hey, what did Wendy say on July 11 about the draperies in the main bathroom? Oh, she said this. Like now we can start having that communication and it's a little more seamless and it covers our butt a little better. That's one simple way. And then for me, it's just like, I'm easily distracted. So helping me manage my calendar and helping strip out some of the drudgery of scheduling meetings and all those things that I don't think anybody really enjoys doing.
Yeah.
It's a helpful tool there as well.
And I think like, we're implementing it, testing it in a lot of different areas, but I really love that, you see it as a path to enhancing the joy or the creative side or the like more, human element to any role.
Yeah.
Because, if I spend, let's just say an hour a week doing meeting minutes and sending out emails, and that 1 hour can be turned into, 5 seconds by an AI to categorize those in a probably more efficient, more organized way than even I would have sent out the meeting notes. And you add that up over the year, that's like 52 hours of creative work that could go into something super meaningful or super interesting to me, or that could push the company forward. So I think that that's like really cool that you call that out, because that's also how I see it. I think a lot of people look at this stuff, especially when we start talking about, agentic workflow and agentic AI, which is coming this year, where, the robots are going to be able to actually do tasks and execute on your behalf.
What's agentic?
So agentic AI is basically like LLMs that can use tools and execute on tasks. So instead of just like, using predictive analysis and context windows to like generate a business plan or, a really great recipe for paella, it can schedule you a flight. Or, it can enter, Byron sent me whatever, 40 homes that he's building this year. It can go and translate all that information into a Google Sheet and then like start an actual workflow for me from a marketing perspective. Or so like the rise of agentic AI, it's here, it's coming. And I think like people are really scared because, they're worried about job loss, or they're worried about their job being augmented to the point where they're like kind of irrelevant. But I'm on your side of the fence, where I think what it's going to do is create space for people to do more meaningful work inside the company, or something that's more interesting to them. So I hope we're right.
I think quite a bit about, because I think our designer friends, I think they are a little nervous about AI, and I think some of that's turning into like a unwillingness to engage with some of those tools, but some of those are pretty compelling. And I actually think there might be a little bit of a transition that we go through here, but I actually think it's going to lead to more interesting design, because what AI is going to be able to do is iterate very quickly and capture and follow trends very quickly. And so I think it will strip out sort of the normal design, but then you'll have more opportunity for like, do you know who Kelly Wurstler is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have more Kelly Wurstler types where it's like, that's so friggin' weird. There's no way an AI could have decided to do like spiky boots with a puffy sweater and a sofa made of old jeans. There's like none of that fits together, and an AI wouldn't do that. It's going to actually spur more creativity and more individuality within that design world, which I think is going to be really exciting, and it's going to lead to some interesting building opportunities as well, where that becomes something that starts to be valued, is that individual stamp on it that connects it back to a human.
I love it. And I think you're right. I think you're right. On that kind of topic of, unique buildings, I know that you have gone and done some investigation and that you stay apprised of modern building techniques, modular systems, sustainability, that you're a very forward thinking builder, not just from a process perspective, but you're the guy building the home, you're on site. So talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you see happening in our industry in terms of whether they're driven by AI or other technologies. Where are we going with, new products coming to market, new methods and methodologies of building, and where are we going to be in 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah. Well, 5, 10, 15 years is a long way away. So last year I went to Germany on a builder's trip, basically, because I get really annoyed with those Europeans are so much better at building than we are. I'm like, come on.
Are they really?
Yeah. Are they? What are they doing? Let's go figure it out. So, and then I came back learning that, they are. They're valuing different things. They're valuing wall assemblies. They're not building a house for the warranty period. They're building a house for the next 100 years. So they invest a little more into the building envelopes, into the systems in the home. But one of the most important takeaways I took from there, and I think it's what we're going to see here, is so they're what they call timber frame construction, but what we would call normal stick frame construction. It's all done in a factory setting. So they build what's called closed wall assemblies. So finished on the outside, finished on the inside, electrical run, windows installed, and then the house comes out panelized, right? So they put all the walls together, make the connections. But there are facilities that are churning out 2,000-3,000 homes a year, but all of them are custom, all of them are different. But they just have it set up more like a manufacturing process than what we have, which is like a service of tying all the different parts together to actually build a house. So they're much more efficient cost-wise and building performance-wise. But the takeaway from that trip was, even if you're not going to follow that path of computer-assisted manufacturing, start setting up your projects as if you were. So that means, I think, and I hope it comes quite soon, gone are the days of working from a two-dimensional set of black and white prints. Let's start moving towards a BIM model right from the outset, which, yes, it takes a little bit of legwork up front, but now that becomes such a valuable asset throughout the whole process, where, how many conversations have you had about blind pockets that are just going to end? Because it's hey, let's just go into the model and be hey, you know what? We can take this module, this 3D module of what it's like to have a roller shade this long with this mechanism that has to have this long of a throw, whatever you want to call it. We don't have to puzzle that out anymore. We can drop that into the model and say,
adjust the framing requirements.
Yeah, and look, we're going to be able to get the screw in there because we can fit the drill in there, rather than doing it in real time with expensive labor. We're going to be able to avoid a lot of those problems with some of that predictive building information modeling. So that's near term. That's also going to strip out the work of estimating. That's going to be click of a button estimating. We're going to be able to, as a layer, put in our unit costs for everything based on both past experience in a given region, supplied unit costing from our preferred vendors, and then tied directly to the SKUs from our retailers and our suppliers. And that's just going to strip out, again, a whole bunch of the boring stuff that I don't think people really like doing anyway. And it provides assurance to clients at the end that, hey, it looks like this. Here's how it's all itemized. And now we have to get the right people on site to execute.
I love that. And I think that that's really cool because that's not far out.
No.
That's coming imminently, right?
Yeah. It's right now, the gap that exists is sort of an education gap in terms of describing that value to clients up front, because it means clients and or architecture and design firms, and then having a build team that's committed to actually using that tool and seeing it through all the way to the end. And all the parts are there already. They just need to be put together.
Have you seen a modeling software like that yet?
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Tim Framer, that you've met at Builders and Brews events in the past. What's it called? There's a program called MyTech, and that's what a lot of like the truss designers use to make their maps. But with that, every time they build I don't know if it's a SketchUp model or a Rhino model or what software they use, but they build a model down to every stud of the house. And Tim has a viewer on his phone. It's called the MyTech Sapphire Viewer. And you pull it up on your phone and you can manipulate that model. So now when Tim and his team are exploring a complicated connection point between a beam running this way and a beam hanging off of it with a post underneath it, he can zoom right in there and see, okay, that's how that's supposed to go. There's no more guesswork. There's no more, we'll just cut a little off the end and hope it works out later. And then you get to the roof and you're like, this ceiling was supposed to be 8 feet. It's only 7'6". Oh, well, like that doesn't happen anymore because you've done this predictive modeling and used that tool. So yeah, the pieces are right there. That one's really cool. I can show you that later.
That's awesome. On the like technical building side, because you've done some crazy stuff, and you know, we've been on a couple of your projects. What do you think separates the people that are able to execute on those types of really challenging projects from the people that just can't do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's that's related to the space that we're in. It's that craft versus commodity discussion where like I think it's an acknowledgement that what we do, certainly in some of the homes you're referring to, which are like typically led by architects, have some really interesting detailing, have a really important factor, and they have clients who are committed to seeing that project through to the end with the details done properly. And that's a rare client, as you know. I lost my own train of thought. But what's different is like you have to have a commitment to the craft, and you have to have a commitment to seeing that through properly, and you have to have the right trade partners engaged who actually can see that finished vision and are willing to put in the time and extra effort to do the best work they can possibly do in that context. And that layers into like the way your contracts are structured, the way you've managed expectations for the clients, the way you've chosen materials and how to put the detailing together for that. There's all kinds of things that weigh into that. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to that commitment on the builder and trade partners to do the best work they can possibly do in that context.
And how do you go about finding, maintaining, and fostering those relationships with the right trade partners? Because that's something that I've noticed when I talk to builders and designers, especially in this day and age, with
Yeah.
some of the talented and skilled people reaching an age of retirement.
Yeah.
Not all trades are created equal. Yeah. I always hear about we're short of trades. Things take longer because you don't want just any Joe Schmo dealing with this.
Yep.
So how do you find and keep the right people? Like, what's been your strategy, or what do you think works in that arena?
Yeah, so it's treating your trade partners not like a commodity, like not who's got the cheapest price for this. All right, you're up. It's treating your trade partners like true partners and bringing them in earlier in the process than you might to be like, all right, Tyrell, we're going to look at the best strategy to shade all these windows. We have kind of this much budget allotted, but we want to understand. One thing I like to ask our trade partners as we're going through the kind of tendering process, are there any opportunities for upgrades that you see on this project? What are they and why? Because it's something that doesn't always get asked. On the other side, are there any opportunities for cost savings on this project? What are they and why would you recommend them? And then who's going to be doing the work? How long will it take? And some of the normal questions. But asking those first two gives a real opportunity and is a bit of a test to see how deeply is this person willing to think through this project versus just saying it's 40 grand done. Okay, no, you haven't actually stopped to be what's best for these homeowners as they're living in this space? And I think asking some of those questions, you can really start to tell how engaged that partner is going to be in that process. And then there's all the normal things can we see active projects? Can I please talk to the trades that regularly follow you? You want to know who the best drywallers in town are? Ask the painters. They're going to tell you, they know.
Right.
We'll pursue that as well with our trade partners.
Sweet. I think there's a lot of people out there that are still on the trade side also looking at the relationship as commodifized.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, where they're just like, oh, it's another contract. I don't really care. Like if I burn the bridge with this builder, because there's so much work out there that I'll pick it up. But you know, we've never operated that way. And I found that over time, like sometimes doing things at a lower margin or even at a loss to maintain a relationship has always paid dividends in the long run. And I hope that, you know, more trades will see that and more builders will see that, because then ultimately, you know, the industry just moves forward stronger together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's our preference, is like we don't typically market directly to the homeowner, because honestly, I don't want to work for the homeowner first. I want to work at a design build level of integration with professional designers and architects. So like more of our relationship building is, as much of our relationship building is focused on those relationships as it is on the individual clients. We need to serve the clients because that's our job. But they're going to do one project in the next 5 years. Whereas if I have a great relationship with a designer, they're going to do dozens of projects. And if we can align our processes and align the way we think about how we're going to serve not just our clients, but our teams and our other trade partners through that whole process, we can create a more enjoyable human experience through that.
Very cool. What questions do you have for me?
Ooh, you do nerd out on AI, which I love. So I'm always curious about that. But you said something earlier that you've seen sort of that community building, you've seen that playing out, and I'm curious what that's looking like for you. Like I know this concert series that your team is doing is awesome for starting to tell some of those stories and build that community. But yeah, really curious how you've seen that, what that's looking like.
Yeah, I think that's why I was kind of curious as to where you think the genesis came from, because I feel like the number of events, the quality of events, the eagerness and willingness to be a part of them, and even just the vibe, like the energy in the room, people are way more open.
Yeah.
And it's like at anything, like it could be at like Jerome's Appliance Gallery, it could be at a Builders and Brews, it can be at a PK at Julian Tile, like whatever. Like anything industry specific that I've gone to in the last, like especially 2 to 3 years, people are just really open. And I think it's like driven by a lot of the, you know, the same reasons that you alluded to earlier. That actually kind of does tie in with why we started doing the concert series, is from like a social media perspective or like digital marketing. You know, everybody's just talking about their product, and like we should probably actually show more product on our Instagram. But I find that these types of conversations are really interesting, and it's like an opportunity to tell a story and show some of the personalities and the people that make the industry move forward, like yourself. So that's kind of what I think. It's fueled by the same reasons. And I think as you know, people are starting to understand and recognize the importance of social media and digital marketing, it's only going to continue to push that forward, because you want to be on your Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever, like talking to your audience and, you know, showing them that you're engaging in the community and that you're bettering yourself and that you're supporting the, you know, construction group in your whatever market you're in as a whole. So I think that's what's pushing it forward, and, you know, we're just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. Cool. What else? Who would be like an awesome guest for you? Like what's next for the concert series? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're going to continue to try and stay focused on people inside the industry for the most part. That being said, you know, there are some really cool things happening. I think we talked about, you know, Google Next. So we'll probably have somebody from Google come on, and we'll try to put it, you know, through the lens of digital transformation for small business and specifically design and construction companies. We've got a few more builders coming up. And then I think, like, because I always want to sit down and chat with people that I have relationships with that I think are interesting characters, you know, in our community. But I'm hoping to get some more like technical trades on, because a lot of our stuff has been like interior designers, home builders, a few industry reps. But like, I'd love to get like Shay on from Tag. Guys like that, of just like, people don't really understand that's like, that dude's an artist. You know what I mean? So guys like that, like metal workers, glass workers, really technical, even just like Kurt. I'd love to get Kurt on and beyond, and just like people that, you know, the trades or suppliers that people don't really understand just how like critical they are to a project's success. So I think that'd be kind of cool to do more kind of trade stuff.
Yeah, nice. I met on the Google thing. We met a fella just the other day, actually. Somebody through Builders and Brews introduced us, and he runs a group called Prairie Prop Tech. Okay. So it's like a accelerator type group here in Calgary that focuses on real estate and construction software development. So we met with him. So we're going to do a collaboration event with them. I forget when we decided, but that's going to be on sort of AI and technology, but it's also going to be a mixer, because he had actually come to a Builders and Brews event, and he's like, oh, it's the same community. It's just we've got people over here who are developing technology for your audience. So we're like, okay, well, let's put them all in a room together. Like that can only be a good thing. So there's something in there. We'll talk about that. Maybe we can help coordinate that together too, because there is, like, long conversations you and I have had. There's a lot of like curiosity and fear and apprehension around the way technology is changing so quickly. And I think people are worried about getting left behind, but they're also worried about getting replaced. And there's a lot of like, of fear and trepidation.
The vibes are off.
But I think we can tackle it better by talking about it together. So I love that you guys are creating spaces to do that. I hope that we can do that with Builders and Brews. And if we can find other groups like this Prairie Prop Tech, it could be a pretty cool thing to start bringing some of that together.
1000%, Byron. And I think, you know what? You hit the nail on the head there. Like, it's that feeling of overwhelm when trying to absorb and understand how to use this stuff. And then it's a feeling of like fear or anxiety that like you're falling behind because you haven't done it. Yeah. And that it might also like completely screw up everything for you and take over your job. So it's like I should be learning it, but I don't want to learn it because it scares me.
Oh, I know.
But it ties back to what we were talking about earlier with that human element and in AI, like the human in the loop. Because even me personally, like what's accelerated my capabilities and implementation of these tools and systems over the last year has been hyper-focused one-on-one conversations for like an hour to 3 hours with somebody who's a step above me. And I found the same thing even for our team. You know, like we've done a couple like company-wide calls where I've shown the tools over a couple of weeks, and it took some time, and some people still just like can't be bothered or don't see the value. But there's a couple of people on the team that have started to test and iterate and use this stuff after I was able to kind of, you know, make it not so scary. And they're bringing use cases for workflow, and they're finding opportunities to be more efficient that I didn't even think of, because they're the ones that are in that role day in and day out. And they're like, hey, could we use Notebook LM for this? Could we use Gemini to do that? Can we use ChatGPT to do this? And I'm like, you know what? You can. And so that's like really cool. And I think, that it's going to be even more important for people like yourself who are all about community and collaboration and like shaking hands and having a beer together to, you know, continue to do that through the context of this like giant tsunami that's coming with the technological change. So I think you're onto something there for sure in terms of like making those connections and putting everybody in a room together.
Yeah.
Make sure you invite me to that one.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, I was picturing a future in my head where like the AI is doing all the work and we just have to hang out in breweries.
That sounds ideal.
That sounds like a problem in one way, but also maybe
it's every day is just building and brews.
Nuts. Yeah, it's just all happening over there. Now it's just brews. But no, that's cool. And I'm excited to see where that goes. I don't like that fear. Like, even like what I don't want to talk about today is tariffs or politics or anything. God. Yeah. Where it's just like, because that's another layer of like, what is happening in the world? And you can't really, it can be hard at times to make that choice between like, I just got to put the blinders on and do my thing over here. But there's all these inputs out here that are scary, but I think they're less scary if we look at them together. So in Builders and Brews context, I talk a lot about like, nothing unifies like a shared struggle. And like at a base level, trying to earn a living in this industry is a struggle. And then you start layering all these other struggles. it could be overwhelming. Like I've had weeks in the last couple of weeks where I'm just ready to throw my hands in and be like, you know what? I'm going to go mow lawns for a living. Like this is it. I'm out. But then you have these conversations like chatting with you, or you'll meet with a trade who's like, man, I got to tell you about this pool I was just working on. And you're like, yeah, let's go. Or a great client experience they had. So it's that roller coaster. But what smooths that out is connecting with those other people and sharing that struggle and sharing that fear. And that's what I'm excited about in that openness context that you're talking about. Yeah.
That's so awesome. What do you think? How many years have you been building now? You've been building, a long time.
11,000 gray hairs. No, I've been building. I've been a carpenter since I was invited to leave high school. So I've been in the construction industry for 27 years. Right?
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, a few minutes. Yeah.
So over, approaching 3 decades in this industry.
Yeah.
If you had to give a soundbite, like what do you think are 3 of the most important things that somebody needs to realize, whether they're, new to the industry, or they've been in it a minute, or they're a seasoned vet?
Yeah.
Like, if you had to give us kind of 3 golden rules for being successful in construction?
All right.
Should we get ChatGPT?
Yeah, I was gonna say I need some time. No, we can figure this out. So I'll go through a couple things. So when I was a carpenter on site, or when I was an apprentice carpenter, I worked on some really big commercial job sites, and you'd have all kinds of characters there. And I had to work with a lot of them who were just like, unfortunately, some of them were dumpster fires as human beings. But you could kind of work with them, and you could be like, oh, the way he stacks lumber is better than I know how to do it, and the way he or she loads a wheelbarrow is better than I know how to do it. So it forced me to look at where my ego started to step in and be like, I can't learn anything from this person, to say, hey, wait a minute. Everybody on this job site, in that context, everybody in this job site can do 3 things better than I can. And if they can do 3 things, and I've learned those 3 things, then that probably means there's another 3 things they can learn. So it makes you set aside your ego and be like, what can I learn from the people around me that I might be blind to? So that lesson has served me really well throughout the years. And I think it actually contributes to some of what we're doing with Builders and Brews, where I like to look outside of our industry for lessons that are very applicable to our businesses. So that's one, is just don't let your ego get in the way and see what you can learn from people that you might be surprised by. I think there's also importance in the construction design industry to recognizing that it is a progression. Like, you're not just because you're a drywaller now doesn't mean you're going to be hanging board when you're 60. There's a path in this industry to doing something that uses the base skill set that you have and the relationships that you have, but can create greater value over time. If that makes sense.
100%.
I think people tend to get caught in like, I'm a drywaller, that's what I do. But if you step outside of that and you look at like what leadership opportunities exist and embrace those opportunities, rather than like, well, I wish I was back on the tools, now I'm just on the desk. No, that's a cool new opportunity to learn something new and to advance your skills in that area and see where that might take you. Those are 2. A third one, I would say, like, especially I'm speaking from the trade side, is like, be proud of the work that we're doing. Like, it's a unique skill set, whether you're an expert in hanging blinds, or you're a really skilled gas fitter, or you're a finishing carpenter, or you're a skilled interior designer. That's a unique skill set. And I think our industry quite often, I joke, we were talking a little bit about the Red Deer Home Show. We've participated in home shows in the past. And there's like a DIY through current that runs through those things that bugs the hell out of me, because it's like, what other industries is it normalized to just like DIY this? Like, you're not going to DIY your own dental work. You're not going to be like, oh, I need a filling. All right, let's get a mirror and a drill. Like, nobody does that. You're not going to DIY knee surgery. You're not going to DIY the paperwork for a partnership separation you're going through, you're going to hire a trusted professional to help you through that process. Our industry, because of DIY, because of HGTV a little bit, and just because of the public perception that, hey, anybody can pick up a hammer and do this, it's easy. It's not easy. And I think we need to be proud of the work that we do to see these buildings through and see these projects through and manage the relationships. And that doesn't need to look like walking around with your chest puffed up. It just needs to be moving with humility, but also professionalism, and not being afraid to demonstrate that and share that with younger people.
Damn, those are 3 really good answers on the spot.
I have a small earbud in, so yeah.
Mission control.
Yeah. No, and I think it's an exciting industry, and I think it is something we should be proud of. It's another difference from going to Germany. Like, they have these wacky, like, German carpenter outfits, but like any uniform, it does something. It sets you apart as like, look, I'm wearing this because I've achieved these things, and that says something about the work that I've put in to get to this point. Whereas here, I get a little fired up when, like, for a while I tried to ban jogging pants on our job sites, because it just bugs me when somebody shows up and they're sloppy and they're wearing jogging pants, and I'm like, okay, man, like,
put on some jeans, bro.
This morning, or put on some Carhartts, or put on some True Work, really nice, like, work pants. Like, when you got up this morning, how did you want to show up at the job site you were
not in your Adidas tracksuit?
Yeah, not in your Adidas tracksuit with a cigarette hanging out. It's time for us from the industry to start reshaping that perception. And so I saw that very much in Germany, that they have achieved something and they're proud of that. And that's has credibility like it would if you were a lawyer or a doctor or anything else that has professional standards around it.
Yeah. Damn, that's really good. What do you think in that same, 20-something years would be tell us a story about, like, some of your biggest challenges or failures?
Challenges. Challenges is and I'll just be open about it. Challenges is still like trying to earn a good living in this industry. I think, again, the perception is like, oh, he's a builder. He's overseeing a $4 million project.
He must be making $1 million bucks.
He's got to be making 20% on that for sure. It's not true. Like, I think with a little more openness, we can look at that and be like, no, by the time the margins get checked down to actually hitting the bank account of the builder after the warranty's been serviced and the trades have been paid and concessions may have been made throughout the way, it's pretty thin, which can be a little bit demoralizing and hard to resist the urge to, like, fill that in with volume. And now you're getting back into that commodity world. So to be properly appreciated as a craftsperson and a builder and be adequately compensated for that, I think there's still a gap there in our industry. So that's been a challenge. And then that challenge is best expressed through the sales cycle, because if I present, often if you present what it's really going to cost, the clients either aren't educated up to a point where they're ready to hear that number, or right now, we're getting this a lot, they just don't have the money. In the midst of all the fear and the economic uncertainty and the tariffs, they just don't have the money to execute a project that 5 years ago might have cost $500,000, and now, I'm sorry, that's $900 all day long. It doesn't matter who does it, it's going to cost that much. So those challenges are still very real, and I'm looking forward to
solving that equation.
There, the sound went way down. Now we don't have to yell at each other.
Well, that's fine. I'm sure an AI can isolate that.
We can clean that up. When the brewery guys, they're like, hey, we're going to be brewing beer. I'm like, yeah, it's a brewery. They said, it might be loud. I said, I'm sure we'll be able to.
We have AI for that, man. Yeah. We'll figure it out.
That challenge is still very real. I'm sure you encounter that too.
Dude, today.
I don't know how, I still don't know the answer for how to fix that.
Me neither, but if I figure it out, I'll let you know. But even today, so that example of the fear, the uncertainty, and then somebody being committed on day one, but not day, 700 and whatever.
Yeah.
We had a client today, big job, 40 grand. Yeah. They paid their deposit to secure their price. 5 months ago, we've had multiple site visits. Yeah. I've done sketching and figured out all these technical pockets and dual rollers and stagger and all this tech stuff for them. Yeah. I need my deposit back. He emails me today.
No.
Yeah, we're over budget on the project. I need my 20 grand. I'm like, dude, what? all the work that's gone into this, like we've been
Yeah.
committed to it. We're getting ready to order. Like if it hasn't been ordered, it's getting ordered like this week or next. Like we've been on site for multiple measurements. So it's a real thing.
That stinks. Yeah.
It stinks big time.
And what people don't realize is that's just a cost. It's not a cost of sales. That represents, we don't, certainly in building, like in a layer, we charge for the pre-construction services, but it's a very small portion. We don't really make money. It just kind of covers our sales costs through that phase. We don't make money till the building starts. In that context, you don't really make money until the products hit the ground.
Exactly.
Right? And I don't think people realize that, nor are consumers necessarily equipped to like help us through that. And there's still a gap in our industry. And I think what we were talking about before, where like something I call integrated project delivery. I don't call it that. It's called integrated project delivery, where rather than like going through the traditional like design, bid, build model, which is what you're describing, where you submitted a bid for that 40 grand way back in the process, we come at the beginning of the project and say, okay, let's work with the client, architect, engineer, designer, key vendors and trades. Let's define the project objective. Okay, I want a 4,000 square foot house and I have $2.1 million to spend. Okay, there's our project objectives. Now let's all work together to meet those objectives as a team, and let's strip out some of the risk and some of the uncertainty from the vendor side that like they're going to get 70% of the way through the project, realize they don't have budgets for the stuff that comes at the end, and axe that. We could have had a way better conversation earlier about like, hey, maybe you don't need the $40,000 package. If we do the $34,000 package, we can achieve the desired outcome. So it's something, again, where I'm curious if software is going to start to help us manage that process in a more structured way. Because right now it's all disparate numbers and ideas and thoughts and bits of information. I think we can start bringing those together and having some overarching, almost like financial management software for a project that provides certainty to the trade partners and vendors that are involved in the project from the beginning. Like, hey, this money's here, it's safe, it's set aside for when we need it, rather than having all that uncertainty that currently exists. Because builders all have different processes. They're all sort of similar, but they're all different, and it can be jarring for clients to understand what's actually going on.
I think that's a really great idea, and definitely something that's achievable, with blockchain technology, AI, big data. I'm obsessed with like data, and I think it's because, I love the analogy of the blinders, but for like a decade, almost 10 years, even though we're like very forward thinking and like modern in terms of, comparatively in our niche, as a business, we really weren't. Yeah. And we're like backfilling all of that aggressively the last 18 or 24 months. So anytime that someone starts talking about like data and decision making and financial controls and, safeguards, I'm just like, it lights me up. Yeah. And it made me think, and I don't know how much we can go into this, but like in the Alaire model, right? I'd love to just chat a little bit about how that's structured.
Sure.
Because where like my synapses are just firing right now is across all of those different offices across North America, there would be millions and millions of touch points for data on the cost of an air conditioner, the cost of a lumber package, the time to build, project financials in terms of like draw schedules. Like there's so much data just in that one company's processes to extract to, help create a stronger platform or software for you as one of the owners, right? And then for the trade and for the homeowner and customer. So just talk to me a little bit about like how that's all set up, the whole thing.
Yeah. And a bit of background. So like, as you know, I had my own company called Brookwright here for
which is when we met.
Yeah. So I ran years ago for almost 11 years, from 2012, 2013 up till a few years ago when I joined Alaire. And I joined Alaire kind of because of what you're describing. Like I knew that I had a desire to be part of a bigger network of builders and to try and affect more change on the industry for all the reasons we've described. Like it can be hard to operate in. But Alaire has a scale that is missing on our side of the industry. So like as craft builders, like across Canada, there's a whole bunch of, I forget the numbers, but it's a substantial portion of construction businesses are made up of 2 to 10 person companies. And what happens there is there's no meaningful way for a 3-person company in Winnipeg to share ideas with a 4-person company in Toronto, to share ideas with a 10-person company in Calgary. Like they're all doing their own thing and they're all iterating and they're all improving little bit by little bit. As a layer where we have 106 partners all operating the same system, all entering their data the same way, or so our
supposed to be.
Our procurement guy for like the last 18 months. Consolidation. He's trying to get us all to use the same cost codes, which we can do and are doing. But that becomes this network of, whereas like as Brookwright, we might do 10 million a year, or my individual unit will do the same. As the whole body of a layer, we're doing 500, 600 million. And so we have all this information that we can start to bring together and start using that to drive value for our trade partners and our clients. And that I'm similarly excited about that. And I'm more curious about, like, the data is important and having that data. It's what are we going to do with that? How are we going to turn that around? And I think we as a layer have a real opportunity to reshape how people perceive residential contractors and how we can establish trust across the board with our potential clients and design partners.
Super cool. Is there a procurement process in place for that group as well?
Yep. So we have relationships with key vendors across North America. So we have discount programs with them. We have like service relationships. So we have a director of procurement. We have a procurement department. Me speaking as me, like any large organization, I don't agree with all of the things that they're doing. They have it set up so that there are rebates that come back to the builder. But underlying that, what we're also doing is looking at how can we look at the supply chain? Because I think you and I have talked about this a little bit, but like the supply chain in construction can be pretty messed up. Like I would like to see a visual where somebody tracks like, okay, a toilet is produced in China by a factory. That factory sells it to a distributor. That distributor sells it to a wholesaler. That wholesaler in between there, it got shipped. So it might have ownership might have transferred while it was shipping. Then it's at a wholesaler now. Then it goes to a retailer. The retailer sells it to a trade. The trade sells it to the builder. The builder sells it to the client. By the time it's gotten to the client, there are like 7 layers of markup. So where this toilet was $12 when it was produced, it is now $350. But how much of that is actual value? So I think, again, software is going to do this, and data across larger companies like Alair is going to look at that and be like, and this is where some of the fear starts to come in, right? Because there's a whole layer of people. How can we analyze the construction supply chain and say, okay, who's adding layers of cost without adding value? And then we have to clean that up. Because if we want to start to make construction more affordable, which it has not been for the last 100 years.
It's not getting better.
No, we continue degrading in terms of efficiency and effectiveness for a dollar spent on a construction site. How can we start to turn that tide around? And I think it's going to mean stripping out a lot of those layers through software. One thing that's exciting that we're talking about with Alair is having a digital show home. So when you log onto our Alair software, or if you're a design partner or a client, we have a digital show home basically where it's like, okay, we have specific relationships with these vendors. So use Kohler as an example. We have a relationship with Kohler. Go onto the Kohler website and you're going to pick all your toilets, all your plumbing fixtures, and then we're going to supply them. We still have to respect the chain of command because those institutions are kind of set up the way they are right now. But I'm curious to see how that starts to shape out and how we use that data to analyze that supply chain. I'm like being hesitant talking about it because I recognize that some of the people that exist in that are like my friends in the industry. So I'm curious to see how their businesses are going to get reshaped as not just Alair starts to do that, but as other companies or other buying groups or other pieces of technology get stuck into the middle and say, we are the procurement group, like a buyer's group and procurement group for any renovation contractor. You pay a monthly subscription and you're involved in our program. Now they also would have a direct factory buying relationship with Hardy Board or with whatever. So yeah, that's going to be interesting.
So on the subject of challenges, early on in your career, was there somewhere along the line that you learned a really important lesson from a failure? Like, tell us a story about one of those times.
Yes. What would I have done? That was I've had quite a few failures. I'm having
As have I.
I'm having a hard time. Well, I'm not younger. They seem to be like, I think why I'm struggling with that is because when you're younger and you have a failure, it's so temporary. Like, it feels big in the moment.
Yeah.
But now you look back and it's like,
That was a blip
that
on the
didn't
radar.
matter. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have all these things. It was like, yeah, I broke my arm. Big deal. Like, that doesn't really matter ultimately. It wasn't until I started getting a little bit older, and some of my failures have been around partnerships, really, and business structures. Like, and this is relevant right now because I'm going through a transition in my business, which is painful. And like, failures would be around being really careful around who you choose to partner with, and not because your partners are bad people. That's often the problem. Is there was a failure to be introspective enough or to align vision before you got going. So it's not really me sharing a failure. I don't really want to talk too much about it because it's kind of raw right now. But this is my second partnership, which we've had to both mutually decide to go our separate ways. But it just caused a lot of energy to go into the dissolving of those relationships that could have gone into the team or could have gone into my own growth. So yeah, the failures around just be careful who you partner with.
And I think, I can't remember the statistic, but it's like almost the same as marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think I can't remember, it's over 50%, but over 50% of business partnerships actually end in dissolution, kind of like marriages, right? So it's like that same thing. People always say, like, one of the most important, like, financial or business decisions you can make in your life is actually who you marry.
Yeah.
Like, when they look at it on a longer trajectory. And like, I would say that that's something that I would also share as a failure. I'm blessed that I have family as a partner, and that has its own set of challenges to overcome. But in other businesses, I've had partnerships and it didn't work out. And I think, there's a bunch of like businessy people that I follow and kind of like business influencers. And do you know Alex Hormozy and those guys? So he has this like framework around partnerships that like somebody either has to have like capital you don't, experience you don't, right? And like they have to actually be lacking. But if you go into a relationship like that and you're not careful and you're not analyzing, like, do they have capital, skill sets, experience, or relationships that I don't? And you're just kind of doing it because you like each other or you think your vision and your interests are aligned, that's not enough, right? And then the other thing that I would say, like, I also, and why this is like striking a chord for me, is like documenting things properly, right? Like my first partnership, I had like a loosey-goosey one page, like, oh, we're doing this thing. And they, I got the raw end of that deal. So I would mirror that.
Yeah. And I did learn that lesson. I would say that like any failures I've had over the years too have been, well, they become learning lessons, but they're rooted in something that took me until I was like in my 40s to recognize, is that like most entrepreneurs have something called an optimism bias. It's why like, so an entrepreneur or a visionary type person will often like create a vision of the future in their head and then work to create that, right? Which is awesome because it gets things moving and it starts new things, but it can also be a real danger because it's usually accompanied by an optimism bias where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then it's going to work out like that, and it's going to be awesome. And it rarely goes that way, but I just keep trying because it's like, wow, let's do it. So recognizing where there is actually a value to skepticism and stepping back from yourself and being like, all right, dude, you're looking at it and you're thinking that's going to work out like that and like that. But what if it doesn't? What other? And now you actually end up going that process of thinking critically through that and recognizing that optimism bias, you can make better decisions because you're like, okay, if I do that, I can still move things forward, but I can just mitigate the risk a little bit through like signing a unanimous shareholders agreement or through all these things. But I also don't regret just getting out there and messing
doing it.
stuff up. That's also a part of what makes life interesting and exciting.
So funny because we had breakfast the other day, but we didn't even talk about this. That is like where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you live there. I love that about you.
Like, I am just like redlining. Everything's going to be perfect all the time. Launch it, throw it up, put it up, send it. Like we'll jump off the cliff. We'll build the plane on the way down.
Chris, just start filming.
Chris, just film it. Do it. Shoot it. Send it out the reach out. I don't care if there's a spelling error in it. I don't care if you didn't double check the pricing with estimating. Just send it out. But I think like it's so funny because I would say in the last 6 months, and honestly, some of this ties back to AI because I've actually started to slow down a bit and use the tools to test and implement and iterate my idea and be like, hey, this is my grandmaster plan. And it's like my late night or Sundays where I have, not a lot of inputs, quotes, emails and stuff to deal with. And I'm like, this is the plan. Does this make sense to you, robot? And then it's like, yeah, it does. And I'm like, help me do risk mitigation as opposed to just jumping in. So I think that's a really good one is like the optimism, is having and recognizing the value of skepticism. I love that. I really like that.
Yeah. And creating checks and balances just to combat the beasts of your better nature. Because that's what that optimism is. It's amazing as a tool, but it can be very dangerous.
100%.
Related to something else I talk about all the time, and I talk about this with my team, is like looking at yourself. Often your greatest strength, the thing that makes you awesome, you're a hard-ass worker, is right next to your greatest weakness, which is like, hey, you're not working as a team. Like, just because there's a checklist to do and you've knocked everything off, if you haven't communicated that with your team, you're not being effective.
Are you talking to me, Byron K? Because it sounds a lot like me.
No, maybe. But it's anybody. Like for me, one of my greatest strengths is I like to talk to people and I like to use humor to solve problems. That can be a real weakness if like your wife tripped and fell into the table and you're just laughing at her. That's not funny, Byron. That's a moment to like not use that strength and do something else. So you have to look at that carefully. How does that show up in your world where your greatest strength is right next to your greatest weakness, and how you try and balance those out.
Sick.
This is a really personal industry. How has your relationship with your customers kind of evolved over time?
Like construction being a personal industry, my relationship with my customers has evolved over time into one that's more rooted in professionalism, I would say. Like I had an interesting experience a few years back with a couple of, he was a doctor and his wife was a psychiatrist, I believe, but professionals. And so they had built a house and they actually weren't happy with the whole process. So they needed some stuff fixed on the house. The architect had recommended they talk to me. So I went and met with them and I started like doing what I would do. Like, oh, how old's your kid? Oh, he's 6. And like, he looks like he can jump really high. I like engaging with kids and trying to get to know people. But then as we talked that through, because I also was like, hey, what happened with the other builder? Like, how come that didn't work out? Like, I know them. They're a pretty good builder. And they said that one thing that tipped it over for them was that they went for the builder had set up a meeting to go for coffee. And the clients who are busy professionals showed up at Starbucks and they're like, all right, Jim, I'll use a fake name. All right, Jim, what are we here to talk about? And Jim's like, oh no, I just wanted to like get to know you guys a little bit better and, just kind of catch up a bit. And they were like, we don't have time for that. Like we hired you as a professional. Like this is not a time to like establish, this client said, like, there's no bedside manner required here. Like we want to get along with you, but that's not what we've hired you to do. While I don't fully agree with that approach, it did make me look carefully at like, wait, when am I doing that? When am I like trying to be too much of a friend, which is actually doing a detriment to my status as a professional? So that's kind of how it's changed. Is I try and approach those relationships much more professionally than I might have 5 to 10 years ago when I was just trying to make everybody laugh or build relationships, right? No, we've hired you. We're paying you a lot to do a professional job. This isn't required to do that. It's a nice to have. It's not a need to have. if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, like, speaking of making people laugh, like, this might be a tough one to recall, but are there any stories from, like, being on site, like, funny stories you can think of over the years?
That you can share.
That I can share, yeah. Construction.
Yeah, like what's
sure.
like a funny, like what's one of the funniest things that's ever happened on site?
So my former business partner, Brian, he's a real character. Have you met Brian?
Yeah.
You met him a couple times. He's still around. He's Stefan's dad, actually, which is awesome. So he's still around. He's still on our network. But he really liked to have a clean job site. So like coffee cups that were left lying around just drove him mental. So one time somebody left the seat up in the urinal or like left a mess in there or something, and he brought the whole job site together and threatened to punch whoever left the urinal like that. He said he threatened to punch them in the dick to the whole job site. I was like, what is happening here? This is amazing, but it's also so offside and so awkward. But he got his point across. The porta-john was much cleaner after that. But that's that. Yeah, it was a good human moment. I'm sure I'll think of a few more, but I don't have any right now. There's a few that are centered around Brian. He's an amazing, he's a really interesting character in the business, but also just, again, a wealth of knowledge of how to, like a true craftsman. He really understands the details and how to execute them, but don't leave a mess.
Or he'll punch you right at the
punch you right in the dick.
Cool.
What is a technical or legal project you have upcoming that you're super excited about?
Yeah, what's in the pipeline? What are you working on now that's like super cool, super technical?
It's
or just exciting.
It's a project that we have going on right now. Is interesting to me because it's a combination of different building systems, and it is a ICF foundation with a timber frame structure with structurally insulated panels wrapping that whole thing.
Cool.
So it's been complicated to put together because, again, we're trying to coordinate different trade partners who maybe aren't 100% familiar with this specific system. But luckily we have guys like Dan from Beaver Max and another Byron named Byron King and our team who are all working together in concert to get those different components put together. So that one's been really interesting to see move along because it hits something that I'm curious about. Not necessarily modular construction, but construction with prefabricated components. That's pretty cool.
Sick.
Yeah, so that's a house that's going on out by Ghost Lake right now. It's in the framing stage and it will be done framing in the next 4 weeks or so.
What's the community?
It's like a private lot on the road up to Wypress.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like an acreage that these clients are building.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I want to thank you for your time today. That was really good. If you ever want to shoot the shit and talk systems, AI, or building, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Cabin Brewing for letting us set up in here.
Yeah.
And I just admire you. I think what you're doing for the industry and how you go about the business is really cool. And just wanted to say thank you for your time.
Thank you, man. Thanks for doing this and thanks for creating these conversations. And I love our breakfast. It always leaves my brain churning a bit, which I really appreciate.
Awesome. Thanks, B.
Cheers, dude.